welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Footy Gameday SquadShow. I'm your host, Cal, and joining me today is Kerm and Tom. How are you guys going?
Good.
Hello, mate. It's great to be back.
It's
been a
to get
while.
back into it.
Yes, of course. For those who have been following along with our series so far, you'll notice there has been a big month break between the last one we did, which was Freo, a month ago. The reason for that is we've been hit with a bit of COVID, a bit of other things, and of course, Game Day Squad launches in just a few days' time. So we're recording this Tuesday the 22nd. Game Day Squad, the platform, launches on 28th. So we've been flat out for that. So we do apologise for our break, but guys, we're pretty keen to get back into it. I know we've had Geelong, who we're looking after today, sitting there waiting to go for quite some time.
Oh, yes. We've been waiting for this one. I can't wait to get stuck in, hey? So let's get it.
I think we've been putting them off, to be honest. No one wants to talk about Geelong anymore.
Yeah. Well, we've got the Suns next, and for those who know, Kerm is a Suns fan, so I've been dying to get to that one, so I've been pushing. The good news is, even though COVID has stopped us from being able to record, we do have all our notes and everything ready to go, so you will start to see us power through the remaining 12 teams as we look to sort of get ready for the start of the season, which is only a few weeks away now, guys. So, yeah, all right, we've spent long enough waiting for it. I reckon let's get stuck into it. So a little refresher on how we go about this series when we're deep diving into these teams. We first start by looking at how the team went last year, doing a bit of a deep brief on that, then having a look to this year, which is now 2022, and how we think their fantasy year is going to play out, some players we're looking for, while finally taking that dynasty approach that we love so much of fantasy. So looking at that at the end. So let's start with how the Cats went this year. So as you can see there, won 16, lost 6, finished third. And as you can see, once again, they made it through to another prelim. So lost to my beloved Power in the qualifying final, dispatched the Giants, and then got beaten by the eventual premiers in Melbourne there. If I had to say a highlight for the year, you could say it was in round 6. I think they dismantled West Coast Eagles down at Cardinia Park, back when West Coast was still a team up and about. I think it was 97 points was the final margin, but it was pretty close to a quarter time. I remember watching it, and then the game was over like that. Or you could even say that, I think the highlight for the team is making another prelim final. So 11 prelim finals since 2007 is the stat I've got here, with
That's crazy.
only one missed final. So I think on paper then we can get to where we graded how they went later on. But yeah, as a club, that's super impressive, and that's sort of everyone would want to take that record. When you look at this, the low light, I've got here, new year, same Geelong. So they did get to another prelim, but unfortunately they did fall short. You could say how they were beaten by the Demons. I think that could be the low light. But then for me, it was that round 23 loss when Demons came from nowhere, and after the siren, they threw away top spot on the ladder. So, yeah, that's the low light for me. Where do you guys think? Think of that right?
Yeah, 100%. Same year, same Geelong.
That final against the D's was a tough game to watch for Geelong fans, I'm sure. They were worked. Yeah.
Yeah, after the siren goal is never good, but final round to take you off the minor premiership as well. Obviously hurt, and they had to go the hard way through the finals, and weren't ready for Melbourne second time round. Let's get on some positives though. We're going to jump in, and who did you guys have as your star of the year? And obviously we are looking at this from a fantasy point of view, because that's what we're all about here at Game Day Squad. So Kerm, I think you're up first. Who did you have as your star of the year?
I went with defender Tom Stewart, and he was an absolute rock for Geelong for the whole season, and for fantasy sides as well. He took his game to another level, averaging 24 disposals, 1.8 inside 50s, and the dude led the league in marks per game with 9 marks a game. So for me, he's one of the best defenders in the league, and he proved it again last season, and TBD to see what he does in 2022.
Jeez, I thought that was an error seeing 8.9 in marks. That's crazy.
Insane.
Crazy high.
Insane.
Oh, yes. And my star of the year is going to be the same person. Kerm, I agree with everything you just said, and exactly what you said. He led the league in marks. And if you were the proud owner of this player, you just reaped all the benefits throughout the whole season. He had his best fantasy season last year of his whole career. There's not much else to say. As you said, he's the rock of the defense, and he's going to have to continue to do so.
100%.
Good picks. What I will say before I get into mine is you will notice a difference from the last series we did is we now actually have our player cards on the screen. So these are the cards that are going to be minted in our game that are going to be up for sale coming out of packs on the 28th. So yeah, just a reminder that all cards come in all rarities, so not just the different ones that you're seeing on there. So yeah, that's a little treat and a little bit different. My star of the year, it's a little bit of an odd one because this guy only played 13 games all season. But I've gone with Mitch Duncan. And the reason I went with him is he would have been the second highest average. He was the second highest averaging forward player for the season, and a good 16 points ahead on average from third and fourth, which I think was side, bottom, and wing guard. So him and Taranto were in a class of their own. He just couldn't get on the park. So he did have. I remember he was coming into the season 100. He was quite old. He's 29. You can see there. And I was, would you have had him? Would you have not have had him? But there was one game I was watching, and I remember he dismantled the Roos. He had 165 plus game day squad points, and really was just when he was on, he was on. It was just a shame he couldn't get in the park for longer. So, yeah, I still want to give him my star of the year because, I don't think he should be punished for missing out from injuries. So
he's a gun.
And fair enough, as you mentioned, with that average and how well he would have done if he could have continued to play at that level. That's a player you might want to look at for next year. I love that pick.
Yeah. What about on the other side? When we go to disappointments of the year, Kerm, who'd you have?
It's funny to think that Luke Dalhouse was he was once a consistent mid-20s disposal getter at the Bulldogs, and he struggled to replicate that form since joining the category in 2019. And last year, he just had another bad year, only averaging 12 touches a game, rarely impacting games at all, unlike his old self. And it's a shame to see where his game has gone because he was so damaging at the Dogs, but he just hasn't been able to do it again here at the Cats.
It's definitely a shame. And for me, this one's a bit close to home. I've picked Gary Rowan as my disappointment of the year. Ooh. And, I'm a huge Swans fan, so I just remember him in his Swannies days and how good and how electric he was. But to say that this guy's career in the AFL has been a roller coaster would be an understatement with the amount of injuries and him trying to string seasons together. And he finally did it. He finally pretty much got through a whole season, and I was getting pretty excited every week seeing him on the pitch, but he just didn't give us that output that we've become accustomed to seeing from him. He had lows in his AFL fantasy average from last year and his GDS average per game for fantasy. I expected a lot more from him, especially in a forward line that, needs someone that is explosive and can kick a couple of goals a game. He has a defined role on his team, so I was a bit disappointed, and I put him down as my disappointment of the year because of that.
Gary Rowan is so weird as a footy player himself. He can go from kicking bags for a few weeks, kicking goals after the siren to win games, and then he just goes missing for so long. It's so weird. But when he's on, he's on. If he's not, he's not.
Exactly right.
Great way to sum him up there. I did enjoy, I was at the Swans game when he was playing and getting amongst the crowd, giving him a good old boo. I did enjoy that. That was one of my highlights of the year. My disappointment. So if you rolled up the two clubs that I hate the most, being a Port fan, you've got Geelong, what they did to me when I was young, back in 2007, and you've got the Crows. And you put them together, you get Paddy Dangerfield. So it's pretty easy for me to sort of start disliking this bloke. But I actually really love this guy. I should hate him for those two reasons, and I should, for all of that. But I actually love playing him, watching him play. But this year he was a little bit of a disappointment. And not because he, had a terrible year compared to, his stuff. But for me, it just sort of signaled the end of him being that premium midfielder. So you can see there, he was 44th ranked in the mid. He did 66th overall. And for a player of his class and how good he's been, that's just not the level we've used to him. So for me, 103 is good, but it's not the Dangerfield great we've come used to. So if you're still holding on to Dangerfield at the start of the year, you would have been really disappointed with the output that you got in a year that they actually did quite well. So
31.
Exactly right. Yeah, you have to pay a premium for a player like Patrick Dangerfield because of his likeness and how great he has been. And you're too right, you would have been pretty disappointed with his output. But it's funny to say that this guy's averaging over 100 fantasy points per game, and that's an off year for him. It just goes to show the class of player he is and how great he's been for so long.
Yeah, he's a star. I'm still salty he got rubbed out for a few weeks. Remember when he had that hit on Jake Kelly in the suspension and missed a few weeks there. So that would have, he missed a few games, so that would have added salt to him not being the 120, 130 points that we were hoping for. Moving on to the report card guys. So I've given these guys a B+. So losing a prelim isn't really a bad thing, but it's, for a team that is win now, and that's definitely what they are. They went out and got Jeremy Cameron. Anything sort of short of making another grand final or potentially even winning it was going to be disappointing for me. But I still think it'd be pretty tough to sort of not give them a B+ for where they sat. So what do you guys have them at?
I actually was harsher. I gave them a B-, and for the same reasons exactly. They've spent so much capital to become a win now team. They've got so many older players. I mean, in a few years, this team's going to be unrecognisable. And for me, Chris Scott has one of the hottest butts in the coaches in the league. He needs a really big season, I think. They've gotten wins. His win-loss record is insane, but the finals and Geelong, they don't mix. They don't mix, and I hate it. So for me, with another bad final series, I gave him a B minus.
That's really funny to see because you went on the harsher side of things. I've given them a lot of leeway here, and I've given them an A plus for the season grading. And I know what you guys are going to say. Their finals campaign was disappointing to say the least, and they were set up for like a win it all. Now they've made those signings, they're getting all these players, but they had such an outstanding season, and they're feared by so many teams in the comp. They rolled over GWS on their way to a prelim final, but then ran into the Melbourne Demons, who, just blitzed their midfield during the entire game, and the Cats' signs of ageing started showing in that game. I feel like, their midfield and their top fantasy players for their team are all really old. They're 30 plus. I think Geelong's top 7.
Spoilers. Yeah, we'll get into that, I'm sure.
Okay.
we'll get into that because I think that'll come when we start looking at the future.
Oh, yes. But just for this year, their top 7
go.
fantasy players are all 28 years or older. That's a
Yuck.
lot of age in their team, and they're going to need to start filling some voids soon. But for the season they had, I thought it was great. A plus is quite fair, I think.
Wow.
A plus.
Perfect season. Curveball early. What are we, 10 minutes back after our month hiatus, and he's done that, which, as you can see there now, that actually puts Geelong, with the weighting that Tom's given them, that's putting them as the highest team for the season out of all the 6 we've done so far, or the 7, including Geelong. So there you go. There's a bit of a zag that, leave that as we leave season 21 behind us. Alrighty, so we've left the 2021 season behind for the Cats, and we're going to be looking at 2022. So, of course, that is this year, and just a few weeks away for us here. We're going to have a look at who are the players we should be bringing in from Geelong to our fantasy team, to our game day squad teams this season, and potentially some players we should be avoiding for this season as well. But how we always start looking at the years, we always start by looking at where the team sits, because we know how important a team's success and their trajectory is to a team and their fantasy players. So, as you can see there, we've got Geelong, and what I've got them doing is I've got them slowly coming back down the mountain, and they've been doing that for a few years. Now, I don't predict they'll fall off the cliff yet. I'll talk a bit more in the future about when I think that might be, but I think that, if you were to tell me they were another top 4 team, they've just got so much talent still there, some players that I still do fear, because, players like we just spoke about, Dangerfield, who you wouldn't sort of, potentially not write him off having a bounce back year, and Selwood and those other guys. But yeah, that's where I've got them. I'm predicting they'll finish 4th because, hey, that's what Geelong do. They make prelims. But yeah, I could see them being a grand final all the way down to 7th potentially. So where do you guys feel they'll be this year?
I love that. It's for me, that's perfect. I mean, if you look at some of their ages, you got Mitch Duncan, 30 years old, Zach Toohey, 31, Paddy Dangerfield, 31, Joel Selwood, 33, and then players like Isaac Smith, who's 32, Tom Hawkins, 33. For me, this team, the health, they've been so lucky with. They've been so consistent with their health. So if we're going to see players start to hit the deck, spend some time in the injuries and stuff like that, I can see them falling down quicker than we've got them predicted. But I like that. There's still so much class in this team. Some of the best players to ever play the game are still on this team. So, yeah, we've got to show respect, but they are on the way down for me.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with you. The ceiling and the floor, I think you really just nailed it. This is the last hoorah for this core group of players to really get it done. And as you've mentioned, there's been so many prelims and they've had so much success in the past. And just with that age, it's so concerning. And Kerm, you just mentioned injuries. Like, when is the injury bug going to strike? You really feel like that this is the season they've got to really put it all together. Otherwise, they're going to go through somewhat of a rebuild.
Yeah, nice. Nice. It sounds like you guys still think I've come back from our break spot on with all my predictions. So let's keep this going for the next 12. All right, so what we do now is we jump, as you can see there, we're going to go into some best 22, some players you have to have in your 22, some players you have knocking on your door, and some players you're avoiding at all costs. Kerm, you want to break down who you've got?
Absolutely. So first of all, I've already spoken about him. It's going to be Tom Stewart. I'll add him to my best 22. For me, he's one of the safest picks for the position. With his intercept marking, tackling, and usage by foot, his floor is extremely high. So he's a set and forget option for me, and he's still got a few years with Tom Stewart. We've spoken about age, but Tom Stewart's still only 28. So if you get him early on this season, you'll be having him for a little while. The other person I'm going to be adding into my starting 22 is Mitch Duncan. Cal, you spoke about how clinical he is when he is on the park. So if he can stay on the field, he's one of the premier picks at the forward position. I don't think there's a person better than him. Knocking on the door of my squad is no one, to be honest. I don't like anybody.
Tumbleweed.
The old tumbleweed. It's come back. There's no one knocking on the door of this squad. Those two are by far and away the safest options in Geelong for me. And avoiding, I hate to say it, but it is going to be Joel Selwood. And this is an age thing. He's been one of the league's best for over a decade and is an absolute club legend. But Geelong often went with a mixture of Guthrie, Duncan, Menegola, Dangerfield still spending time in the middle, Parfitt when he's actually in the team. So there's so many players who can spend time in the midfield. And I can just see Joel Selwood, as good as he's been, such a warrior, just slowly drifting out of that rotation. So I would suggest staying away from Joel Selwood next year and going forward.
Yeah, wow, it's crazy to hear that, but I agree with what you say.
It's sad, man. Yeah.
But anyway, my three here, my win now player is Thomas Stewart. I think me and Kerm have been pretty big on him this recording already, and why not continue that? One of the best backmen in the league. We already mentioned how he led the league in marks last year. That's the player I want on my squad. I want a player who's going to have the ball and give me fantasy production. So he's in my best 22 for next season. Knocking on my door is Brendan Parfitt, and you've just mentioned, the age, and Selwood is a player to avoid. This guy's pretty young, and he plays forward and he gets a rotation into the midfield. And if this injury bug does strike, I can see his role increasing, and therefore his fantasy production with it.
I love
He
that.
averaged a career high in GDS fantasy points per game last season at 86. He's on the way up. This is a player I'm really looking at, and I'm going to keep a close eye on as the season, evolves. Player I'm avoiding. I can't believe I'm saying this, because this is a player I moulded my game off when I personally played footy. One of my favourite players of all time, but it's Patrick Dangerfield. We're speaking about the age in the midfield. I don't want to be paying a premium for a player like Patrick Dangerfield next year in drafts and in Supercoach when I know I can find value elsewhere. So Selwood for Kerm, Dangerfield for me. Callum, what have you got in store for us, mate?
Tom
before I get to that-
Dangerfield's really...
Yeah, I was going to say, before I get into that, I want to know, how close did you get to moulding your game like Dangerfield? Did you get close?
Not quite, but when you're a youngin and you look at the highlights, that was one of the people I really looked up to and aspired to, try to mould my game off, because he just does everything so well. There's not one weakness in his game when you watch him play, and if I could be anything like him, I'm sure I would have gone a lot further.
And I don't know if you guys saw, he just saved a few people from drowning.
Oh, he's
He
a
was on
hero.
his book. He's a hero. Woke up to that news this morning. So, yeah, he can do it all on and off the field. Now, I did say before that I still think Geelong will be good because they've got this warrior, old core. And I still don't, can't see them falling off the cliff completely. But when it comes to fantasy, it's a different story. Like, you can still have a Dangerfield, put him down forward. He can still be really good for you, but he just wouldn't, this year in fantasy. And that's why I'm going to start with who I'm avoiding. As you can see there, I've gone Danger, Selwood, and I've gone one further than you guys. I've added 2 into that list as well.
Fair enough.
Ooh,
For me,
okay.
all over 32, all played lots of games, and I just don't think these are the players you should be going after in this year win now comp, let alone the dynasty model that we are. So, if you're on the fence about it, remember that our cards go from season to season. So, yeah, I just think there's a few better options. One of them being Duncan, like you said, absolute set and forget. He's a lock if he's healthy. Again, he's one of those people in that age bracket that he could still drop off and still be dominant as one of our top 6 forwards. And I actually don't have Stewart in the team, which is maybe a little bit of a zag, but I do like a few other younger players. I sort of think in a pure upside. And again, we've only got 6 spots in the field, and I really like, for example, a couple of people like Dawson and Lukosius. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'll get it right by the end of the year. But I just feel like if he comes down a little bit and those guys go up, I'd much rather take the upside of some other guys. So he's not in my spot, but absolutely he's there if they're not performing or if they get injured. So I think he's a great person coming off my bench.
What else does he need to lead the league in for him to crack in, mate? He's first in
what?
marks.
Goals. He's going to win the Coleman.
Yeah, give him a Coleman down back. That'd do it and get him in my team.
Hey, fair call.
All right, guys, on to our final segment here, which is potentially our favourite one and the most fun, because it is most like our Game Day Squad platform, and that's looking at the dynasty prospects of the Geelong Cats. So for those who don't know or are new to this, Game Day Squad is all a dynasty league. So the players you have, they carry on from season to season. You get the player cards. You can hold on to them if they're 18 till they're 30 if they could play that long. So yeah, we do take that dynasty model or those keeper leagues that you might have heard with some of your other platforms. But what we start with is we go, who are your future stars? And with future star, we say who is like your nailed on player that is like set and forget, you put in your team, you know you'll be happy for the next 5 to 10 years. And Kerm, I think you've got a spicy one to get us started.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what are we looking at here, Kerm?
Yeah, this is a retirement home. I've never seen a list like this. And for me, looking at Geelong's list, I can't figure out who's going to be the next Joel Selwood, the next Tom Hawkins, the next Patrick Dangerfield. Who's going to break through? There's no solid pick for that. And it was actually going to be Jordan Clark. When we started doing this, it was actually going to be Jordan Clark who just got traded to Freo, but we all know that Geelong hate players under the age of 38. So it can't be him. But yeah, for me, it's no one. This list is so old. It's going to change drastically in the next couple of years. It's not going to be even recognisable. So for me right now, hold tight on your dynasty player from Geelong and just sit back and watch the retirement home players, because there are still some good players.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and fair enough. But Callum, before I get into mine, I have a quick question for you. So let's say, I start playing Game Day Squad and I pick up someone of age like Selwood, Patrick Dangerfield, and eventually they may retire. What happens to my card? Because, I own this. What happens? Where does it go?
Yeah, of course. One of the most asked questions people are saying about our new platform is, like I said, what happens to a player when he retires? What happens to their player cards? Well, there's a couple of things that you can do. So the first of all is you can keep it as a collectible. If you've had a player that you've absolutely loved, you've got the one-of-one Buddy Franklin legend card, you might hold on to that for the same reason that people holding on to different NFTs and other collectibles. So there's definitely that element to it. But inside the game, there's a few things. So the first thing we have is a system called draft tokens. So depending on the rarity of your card, you can actually call what we call we delist it or we retire the card, and you actually get tokens that go to the draft. So you can almost like recycling the players into like a lottery style, like an NBA or NFL lottery style, where these tokens you get from these players you delist or retire actually go in to give you a chance of getting some of the best young players in the next draft. So when new players come in next year, they're going to come through this draft and you have your best chance of getting them. So there's that, and there's obviously a few other things we have in the works. So we're not going to have them ready for our launch on the 28th and potentially not in the first few months either. But we are looking to do sort of FIFA-style squad building challenges. So let's say, for example, one of the challenges, hey, you have to have a team and it needs at least 3 players from the 2011 Geelong team. It's like, all right, if there's not many of them flying around at the moment, so then all of a sudden those Joel Selwoods and those cards that potentially are a bit older become really valuable because that might unlock something really special. So yeah, we will try and keep it creative, give people that sort of incentive to hold on to them. But like I said, there's always that ability. If you want to get rid of them, you could always still sell it to people because they are still cards, they are still digital collectibles. So someone might want to buy it just because they're maybe a bigger Patrick Dangerfield fan than you. But yeah, definitely a bit of utility even though a player retires.
Wow,
Very cool.
Exciting stuff. So your player doesn't even go to waste, which is awesome to hear. But my pick, guys, I have picked a player, unlike Kerm. I know they're quite old, but there's still plenty of upside, and it's Brendan Parfitt that I mentioned before, and it's for the same reasons that I've already mentioned. It's going to take, all it takes, is one significant injury or a couple at that, and he's going to take his game to the next level. This is a player or NFT I want to be holding on to because his future value with his team is unknown. And I feel like he could slot into this role that Patrick Dangerfield and Selwood have been playing for years and be the next guy up, as Kerm was mentioning, because, it's all up in the air right now. Who knows who's going to take over and start dominating that midfield, but Brendan Parfitt is the front runner in my eyes.
Fair.
I love that.
Fair.
Love that pick so much.
There's definitely going to be some game time opening up over the next couple of years. So yeah, I can definitely see it. I went something very similar to Kerm, and for the record, I didn't know Kerm was going to do what he did because I've
just seen
also
it.
I've also gone with no one. I could not find
Wow.
a star on this team. And again, I should hate Geelong, and I do hate Geelong, but I have taken my glasses off, my port glasses, and I still couldn't find a star that I'd bank on being like a player I'd want in my team for the next 5 to 10 years. They haven't had a really low draft pick in quite a while, and their steal of the draft a few years back was, of course, getting Kelly, who had left to go to the Eagles a couple of years ago. So, yeah, I just don't know who we've got there, but I will say, as we move on to our next bit, which is the upside potential players. So some players we're saying are absolutely not nailed on stars, but potentially we think there's a little something there that could be worth a bit of a, go out and get, and they might be worth a little bit more in the future. I've gone with Brad Close. So I really like him. 23-year-old, he's played 30 games, most of them coming last year. He didn't have great averages. I think he was averaging about 65 for the season, which is about 80 at range in the forward. So he hasn't done anything special. But I just really like watching him the way he plays. So I saw a few bit of him this year with the Cats, and I just like the way he goes about it. I think he played really well against Port in the qualifying final that they lost. And I think out of all the sort of young players there, he's one that's sort of taken my eye, and I've been watching a little bit there. So yeah, I'm not sure how he'll develop in the fantasy side of things, but I think he's got a high variance. So he's definitely not sort of a lock like we've just said. But yeah, there could be something there where he might pay a bit of dividends in the future. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, okay. And I've gone here with a tumbleweed, and I was really considering putting Brendan Parfitt. Yeah, I've joined the party, guys. And I was going to put Brendan Parfitt in this section, but the reason I didn't is because I want to be getting a player like him now. I don't want to be waiting a year or two and seeing him develop. I want him at the absolute best value, and I don't want everyone else catching on with me that this guy's going to have an increased role and his fantasy production is going to be good. So that's the reason I didn't do it, and I had the tumbleweed, is because I'm not waiting to find the value. I want to get the value early and then, reap the benefits of that.
Oh, we're back. We had a bit of technical difficulty. But what I was going to say before the internet cut out on us was, for those Geelong fans who are there screaming at their computers or their phones at the moment saying, what about this player? What about this player? Let us know, because we genuinely want to build better fantasy teams. So if there's a player that that guy's a nailed on star for the future, let us know in the comments. We want to know as well, because just like you, we want to create the best team. So yeah, don't hold all that information to yourself. Please get it out there for us. But Kerm, I believe you actually have another upside player. Who'd you go with?
Yeah, no tumbleweed from me here. I've gone with Quinton Narkle. And when he gets some midfield minutes, he's actually pretty good. So when he started in the middle last year, he put up disposal numbers of 34, 25, 26, and 17 touches in those games. So if we can see Narkle get some consistency in the guts, I think he can become one of the better midfielders in the league. But it's a bit of an iffy one because he's only just signed a 1-year contract at the Cattery, so we might see him actually leave. But at 23 years old, if he can break into this midfield and sign a contract, I think he could be one to watch.
Yeah, definitely keeping my eyes on him as well. Couple of young players there you want to be closely watching.
Yeah, there you go. Well, at least we've got a couple in there, a couple of players that we can sort of look for, keep excitement. What we finish off here is I give you the 3 to 5 year sort of dynasty potential of the various clubs. And of course, today we are looking at Geelong. And what I've done there, as you can see, as that just comes on, I've got them in Tier 2, guys. Now, Tier 2 is, I believe, in the next 3 to 5 years that they're going to compete for one premiership. And I kind of think that's going to be this year. And then after that, I kind of see them falling off a bit. I think they could be following a similar trajectory to the Tigers and to the Hawks, probably a better example, because they've actually gone now and doing the full rebuild. Again, it's Geelong. They've been here. We've been thinking this probably a few times. So I not with great confidence in this, but I just don't see how they can turn it around. But like I said, if there's one club in the AFL that you trust to sort of pull it out of nowhere, find some stars, I think it is Geelong, because they've got that record and they probably deserve that respect. So, yeah, what do you guys think? Tier 2 fair?
Look, due to the technicalities of the tier guide, I agree with Tier 2 because, as we said before, this is the last hoorah. This is their last chance to really put everything together. I think they do compete for a premiership this year. If you were to take out this year and look at the next 6 years after, that might drop to Tier 3 or Tier 4 for me personally. But, yeah, they're going to have a run this year. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I completely agree with this. If they miss the 4 this year, if they miss the top 4, I think Chris Scott's gone. I think Joel Selwood's gone. We'll see some of the other big names gone. And then we can see how their list management really is. See what draft picks they make and see what young guys they pick up in free agency, etc., etc. So, yeah, good luck to them this year, and we'll eagerly wait and see.
There you go, and the hot seat chat is already starting.
Seat started.
Yeah, started. The season hasn't
Early.
even kicked off, and we're already getting rid of coaches. So, I think that'll wrap us up, guys. We've got through it. It's been, like we said, a month, and we do appreciate everyone who has still been asking where we were. We are now back, and we will pump through this. But please make sure you do give us a thumbs up and you do subscribe. We are really growing here, and we do want to get our platform out. So the more people and then you guys helping and commenting and doing all that definitely does help. But also go check us out on GameDaySquad.com.au. So if you are watching this and it's past the 28th, jump on, register. It's completely free. You get a whole bunch of free bronze players to get yourself started, and you can get going, start opening some packs from day one. And also go check out our Instagram, because there's a lot happening, a lot of education stuff there. And yeah, we're really excited with what we have to offer, and we can't wait to be able to show it to everyone that's been, both on the journey with us so far and those that are just joining us now. So yeah, I reckon we got the Suns next, guys. Who's keen for that, Kerm?
Nah.
Yeah.
No,
I know Kerm is, that's for sure. Oh, yeah.
Oh, they make me
we
sad.
won't be long till we're back talking about them. I can't wait to get into that, because that's going to be fun. So cheers, guys, and we'll talk to you then.
See you soon, guys.
See you guys.